Hello, I'm Natalie Wood. This is one of my favorite books, Marjorie Morningstar. I just had the opportunity of playing
Natalie Wood had it all: beauty, talent, and a name that lit up Hollywood. From child star to leading lady, she became one of the most loved actresses of her time. But behind the camera, her life was filled with heartbreak. Her marriage to Robert Wagner was a roller coaster, full of love, jealousy, and painful secrets. Then came that one night in 1981. A boat, a few drinks, and a mystery that left everyone asking, what really happened? Now, decades later, Robert Wagner has finally broken his silence, and what he revealed has shocked everyone. Join us as we uncover her rise, the heartbreak, and the truth behind that tragic night. The early life of Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood was born in San Francisco on July the 20th, 1938. But back then, her name was Natalie Zakarenko. Her parents, Maria and Nicholas, had both come from different parts of Russia and Ukraine. Her mother, Maria Zudilova, had already been married before and had a daughter named Olga from that first marriage. They moved to America in 1930. Her father, Nicholas Zakarenko, was from Ussurisk and had gone through a lot too. His father had died in a street fight during the Russian Civil War. After that, his family escaped to China and later moved to Vancouver. Eventually, they ended up in the United States. Maria met Nicholas while still married to her first husband, and they married in 1938, 5 months before Natalie was born. 1 year later, the family changed their last name to Gurdon to make it easier for Americans to say. When Natalie was around 4, her family moved to Santa Rosa, California. That move changed everything. A film crew noticed her during a shoot in the town. It didn't take long before she was on her way to becoming a star. Natalie's name was later changed to Wood by RKO studio executives. They thought it sounded better for Hollywood and was a tribute to filmmaker Sam Wood. Her younger sister, Svetlana, was born in 1946 and also became an actress later under the name Lana Wood. But even from the beginning, Natalie's story was filled with twists and turns, and things were just getting started. The child actress years. Natalie made her first movie appearance at just 4 years old. She had a tiny part in the film The Moon is Down, which came out in 1943. After that, she was in another short scene for the movie Happy Land. Though the roles were small, director Irving Pitchell saw something special in her. He stayed in touch with the family and later told them to bring Natalie to Los Angeles for a screen test. Natalie's mom didn't think twice. She packed up the whole family and moved to LA. Her dad didn't agree with the decision, but her mother's dream to make Natalie a star was stronger. According to her sister Lana, Pitchell wanted to adopt Natalie because he believed in her so much. When she was just 7, Natalie landed a big role in Tomorrow is Forever, starring opposite Orson Welles and Claudette Colbert. She played a young orphan from Germany after World War II. But there was one problem. Natalie couldn't cry on command. To fix that, her mother did something shocking. She tore apart a butterfly right in front of her. It worked, and Natalie cried for the scene. Orson Welles later said she was so talented, it was terrifying. Natalie doesn't act from the script, he said. She acts from the heart. She continued working with Pitchell and also starred in The Ghost and Mrs. Muir as Jean Tierney's daughter. Then came her most famous role as a child, in Miracle on 34th Street in 1947. She played a little girl who didn't believe in Santa Claus until she met one who might be the real deal. The movie was a huge hit and became a Christmas classic. Macy's even invited her to appear in their famous Thanksgiving Day parade. After that, she was one of the top child stars in Hollywood. But there was no break for young Natalie. She kept playing daughter roles in one film after another. She acted in over 20 films as a child and even appeared on TV shows like Kraft Theater and Chevron Theater. While working on sets, she also had to attend school every day. California law required 3 hours of school each day for child actors. Natalie took it seriously. She got straight A's and was especially good at math. Director Joseph Mankiewicz said, "In all my years in the business, I never met a smarter moppet." Natalie herself once said, "I always felt guilty when I knew the crew was sitting around waiting for me to finish my 3 hours. As soon as the teacher let us go, I ran to the set as fast as I could." Her mom stayed closely involved in her career, managing her every move, even when Natalie got agents. By the age of 9, Parents Magazine named her the most exciting juvenile motion picture star of the year. Her childhood may have looked like a dream, but behind the camera, life was anything but simple. Grown-up roles and Oscar buzz. As she moved into her teen years, Natalie didn't fade away like some child stars. Instead, her career shifted into a new gear. One of her biggest early roles as a teenager came in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955. She acted alongside James Dean and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She followed that success with a role in John Ford's The Searchers in 1956. Her fame kept growing. She starred in West Side Story in 1961 and Gypsy in 1962, two musicals that became classics. Natalie also proved she wasn't just a pretty face, she was a serious actress. She got 2 more Oscar nominations for Best Actress, one for Splendor in the Grass, 1961, and another for Love with the Proper Stranger, 1963. Through the 1960s, Natalie stayed busy. She starred in Sex and the Single Girl, The Great Race, Inside Daisy Clover, This Property is Condemned, and Bob and Carol, and Ted and Alice. These movies showed different sides of her and helped her grow in the eyes of the public. She could play sweet, sexy, strong, or broken, and people loved her for it. Critics said her career showed what it meant to grow up as a woman in America during changing times. She was one of the few actresses who successfully went from playing children to grown women on screen. That alone made her special in Hollywood's eyes. But while her career looked perfect, her personal life was becoming more complicated. Love, motherhood, and slowing down. Natalie Wood's personal life was often as dramatic as the roles she played on screen. Natalie first married Robert Wagner on December 28, 1957, in Scottsdale, Arizona. Natalie was just 19 years old, and Wagner was already a big name in the industry. To the public, they seemed like the perfect couple. 2 young, beautiful stars living the dream. But behind the smiles and glamour, things weren't as perfect as they looked. By the early 1960s, rumors started spreading that something was wrong. According to several reports, Natalie discovered that Wagner had been having an affair, this time with another man. The news shocked everyone, and soon after, the couple announced their separation on June 20, 1961. Some say they actually split a year earlier, but either way, their marriage ended with heartbreak. On April 27, 1962, they officially divorced. The breakup didn't stop the headlines, though. It only made them bigger. Hollywood couldn't stop talking about Natalie and Wagner's failed marriage, and their story would keep unfolding for years to come. After their split, Natalie focused on her career and dated several well-known men. She later married British producer Richard Gregson, and they had a daughter named Natasha in 1970. But that marriage also ended, and by 1972, Natalie had found her way back to Wagner. They remarried in July of that year aboard a yacht in Malibu. and their daughter Courtney was born 2 years later. During the 1970s, Natalie chose to step back from the spotlight. She had been acting since childhood and now wanted to focus on her family. Though she slowed down in film, she didn't stop working altogether. She acted in only 2 movies that decade, but appeared more often on television. One of her standout roles was in the 1979 TV remake of From Here to Eternity, which earned her a Golden Globe Award. These later roles reflected a new version of Natalie, more mature, more thoughtful. Her characters had grown just as she had. Critics noted how her roles mirrored the changing image of American women. Natalie was no longer playing just the sweet child or rebellious teen. She was portraying strong, complex women, mothers, wives, and professionals. She brought real emotion to the screen, shaped by her own life experiences. Even as she stepped away from the rush of fame, her presence never faded. Searching for love again. After her divorce from Wagner, Natalie tried to move on, but her personal life stayed in the public eye. She dated some of Hollywood's most famous men, including Warren Beatty, Michael Caine, and David Niven Jr. Each relationship came with its own share of attention and gossip. In 1965, she got engaged to a Venezuelan shoe manufacturer named Ladislav Blatnik, but the engagement didn't last. Natalie's heart seemed to always be searching for something steady, something real. On May 30th, 1969, she married British producer Richard Gregson after dating him for nearly 3 years. For a while, it looked like she had finally found happiness. They welcomed their daughter, Natasha, on September 29, 1970. But even that chapter didn't last long. Just over a year later, Natalie filed for divorce, finalizing it in April 1972. Not long after, she briefly dated a rising California politician, Jerry Brown, who would later become the governor of the state. But fate had other plans for Natalie. By the end of January 1972, she reconnected with Robert Wagner. Despite everything that had happened between them, the love they once had seemed to draw them back together. It was as if they couldn't stay apart. The two remarried on July 16, 1972, on a yacht called the Ramblin' Rose, anchored off Malibu. Their daughter, Courtney, was born 2 years later, on March 9, 1974. To the world, it looked like Natalie and Wagner had finally found peace together. But whispers and rumors would never completely fade away. And soon, new stories would begin to surface that would change how the world saw them forever. The mysterious death of Natalie Wood. On November 29, 1981, the world woke up to shocking news. Natalie Wood was dead at just 43 years old. She had been on a weekend trip to Santa Catalina Island aboard her husband Robert Wagner's yacht, the Splendor. The group on board included her Brainstorm co-star, Christopher Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. Sometime during the night of November 28th, Natalie went missing. The next morning, her body was found floating in the water, about a mile away from the boat. A small inflatable dinghy was found nearby, beached on the shore. Wagner told investigators that Natalie wasn't with him when he went to bed. But soon, questions began to rise. The autopsy showed bruises on her arms and body, and an abrasion on her left cheek, but no one could explain how or when they happened. Captain Davern later claimed that Natalie and Wagner had argued that night. Wagner denied it at first, but years later, in his book Pieces of My Heart, he admitted they did argue before she disappeared. The toxicology report showed that Natalie's blood alcohol level was 0.14%, and there were traces of painkillers and a motion sickness pill in her system. These substances would have made her more affected by the alcohol. Los Angeles County Coroner Thomas Noguchi ruled her death an accidental drowning and hypothermia. He suggested that Natalie, who had been drinking, might have slipped while trying to climb back onto the dinghy. But many, including her sister Lana, never believed that story. Lana said Natalie was terrified of water and could not swim. She insisted that Natalie would never have left the yacht alone. Witnesses on a nearby boat also claimed they heard a woman screaming for help that night. Yet the case was quickly closed, leaving behind a cloud of mystery that has lasted for decades. The case reopens, and shocking allegations. Natalie was buried on December 2nd, 1981, at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Just 3 days later, the coroner's office declared the case closed, but the mystery refused to die. In 2011, 30 years after her death, the case was suddenly reopened. Dennis Davern, the yacht's captain, came forward and admitted he had lied to the police during the first investigation. He said there had been a heated argument between Natalie and Wagner that night. According to him, Natalie had been flirting with Christopher Walken, and Wagner became jealous and furious. Davern claimed Wagner stopped him from turning on the yacht's searchlights or calling for help after Natalie went missing. He went as far as to suggest that Wagner was responsible for her death. Natalie's sister, Lana, said Davern told her that he saw Wagner shove Natalie, causing her to fall overboard. Dennis said it appeared to him as though RJ shoved her away, and she went overboard. Dennis panicked, and RJ said, "Leave her there. Teach her a lesson," she explained. Davern said Wagner kept drinking and refused to go after her, only realizing too late that she was gone. Actor Christopher Walken hired a lawyer and cooperated fully with investigators, but was never considered a suspect. In 2012, the Los Angeles County Chief Coroner updated Natalie's death certificate. The cause of death was changed from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. The new report stated that it was not clearly established how Natalie ended up in the water. Detectives told the coroner's office not to discuss the case further. Meanwhile, Lana continued pushing for justice. When she gained access to the original police report, she noticed inconsistencies. Both Wagner and Walken had been questioned for less than 10 minutes after Natalie's death, and key witness statements seemed ignored. In 2009, before the case was reopened, Lana had helped launch a petition urging for a new investigation. 2 years later, her efforts paid off. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the case, saying there was additional information. But even after all the years, all the reports, and all the theories, one question still haunts everyone. What really happened to Natalie Wood that night? The night that changed everything. The night Natalie Wood died remains one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries. According to those on board the Splendor, the night began calmly, but ended in tragedy. Yet, many believe Robert Wagner's behavior after realizing Natalie was missing didn't match that of a worried husband. Captain Dennis Davern later shared that Wagner told him to look for Natalie after noticing she was gone. But when Davern suggested turning on the yacht's floodlights and calling for help, Wagner refused. He said he didn't want to attract attention. Davern thought that was strange, especially because Natalie was terrified of water and would never take the small dinghy out alone. One of the witnesses that night, Marilyn Wayne, was on a nearby boat just 80 feet away. She told investigators that around 11 p.m., she and her boyfriend heard a woman crying out for help. The voice was clear and desperate. "Somebody please help me! I'm drowning!" the woman screamed. The cries went on for about 30 minutes, until 11:30 p.m. Marilyn and her boyfriend tried calling the harbor master, but no one answered. They assumed maybe it was a joke coming from another boat. By the time Wagner finally called for help, it was around 1:30 a.m., 2 hours later. This delay made no sense to Natalie's sister, Lana. She said she would have never left the boat like that, undressed in just a nightgown. But that's exactly how Natalie was found, floating in the cold water, wearing a thin nightgown. For many, that detail alone was heartbreaking and suspicious. The woman who had feared water her entire life somehow ended up drowning in it. Over the years, the mystery surrounding that night only deepened as new evidence and testimonies surfaced. Robert Wagner under suspicion. The case was officially reopened in November 2011 after Dennis Davern came forward, admitting that he had lied to police during the first investigation. He claimed Robert Wagner was responsible for Natalie's death, and that his jealousy toward Christopher Walken, who was also on board, had led to a heated argument. While Walken cooperated with the new investigation, Wagner refused to speak with the police. The following year, Natalie's death certificate was changed from accidental drowning to drowning and undetermined factors. In 2018, the case took another dramatic turn. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department publicly confirmed that Natalie's death was now being treated as suspicious. For the first time, Robert Wagner was officially named a person of interest. Lieutenant John Corina, who was leading the investigation, explained that Wagner's version of events didn't match with other witness statements. As we've investigated the case over the last 6 years, I think he's more of a person of interest now, Corina said. We know he was the last person to be with Natalie before she disappeared. He added, his story has changed a little bit over time, and the details just don't add up. Investigators made several attempts to interview Wagner again, but he refused every time. Corina later said, we would love to talk to Robert Wagner. He's refused to talk to us. We can't force him. Meanwhile, in a past interview, Christopher Walken described Natalie's death as a tragic accident. Anybody there saw the logistics of the boat, the night, where we were, that it was raining, and would know exactly what happened, he said. But not everyone agreed with him. Corina said, she got in the water somehow, and I don't think she got in the water by herself. That same year, new details from the 2013 coroner's report came to light. The Los Angeles Times revealed that Natalie had fresh bruises on her right forearm, left wrist, and right knee. She also had a scratch on her neck and a scrape on her forehead. Officials said it was possible she had been assaulted before she drowned. With every new report, the mystery only grew darker. Robert Wagner breaks his silence. In a private interview from 2014, Robert Wagner shared his feelings about Natalie Wood's death. Though he never spoke to the police, he opened up to Closer Weekly and admitted how deeply her loss still hurt him. She was such a special lady to me and everyone in the family, he said. Robert talked about their children and how Natalie was not only the mother of Natasha and Courtney, but also the stepmother of his daughter Katie. Everyone still has a lot of love for her, he added. In his 2008 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Robert remembered the first time he saw Natalie at the Fox Studios lot. He was 18, she was 10. We didn't speak, but I smiled, he wrote. Natalie later told her mom she would marry him. She did, twice. Their first marriage in 1957 started with joy, but cracks soon appeared. One witness from that time claimed Natalie once banged on a neighbor's door yelling, "He's going to kill me!" Years later, Robert admitted how jealous he had been, especially of Warren Beatty, Natalie's co-star in Splendor in the Grass. "I wanted to kill that son of a bitch," Robert said. He even admitted to waiting outside Warren's house with a gun, but never went through with it. Their marriage ended in 1962. Years later, they remarried, and Robert said those next 9 years were filled with gratitude. But as new evidence came out, it became clear those years weren't as peaceful as he had once claimed. A stormy night and a broken bottle. You see, as Natalie's career began picking up again in 1981, she took on the lead role in the sci-fi film Brainstorm. While she was filming in North Carolina, Robert stayed in Los Angeles working on his show, Heart to Heart. He began to feel jealous again, this time of Christopher Walken, Natalie's co-star and a recent Oscar winner. Despite his feelings, he invited Walken to join them for a Thanksgiving weekend on their boat, Splendor. But the holiday turned sour. According to witnesses, Robert had been drinking all day. That night, he suddenly wanted to move the boat to a more private part of the island. Natalie, who feared water and couldn't swim, got upset. One person on a nearby boat told police that Natalie looked drunk and angry. She even fell to her knees during the fight. Dennis Davern, the boat's captain, said Natalie was so furious that she packed a bag and asked him to take her to shore. They rented hotel rooms, and Natalie spent the night crying. "If this continues, I will divorce him," she told Davern. The next morning, she returned to the boat and made breakfast for Robert. She wanted to smooth things over. But later that day, after more drinking, she and Walken left the boat to visit a bar. When Robert found them, he felt ignored. Walken spoke about focusing only on his career. He clearly thought Natalie should live like that too, Robert later said. When they got back to the boat, things got worse. Robert smashed a wine bottle and yelled, "Why the FK? Don't you stay out of her career?" According to the detective, Robert also screamed, "What are you trying to do? FK my wife." That's when Natalie said, "I cannot take this anymore," and went to her room. Walken went to his own cabin, and Davern went to the bridge. A few minutes later, he heard a fight and knocked on their door. Robert answered, looking crazed, and told him, "Go away." What happened next is still unclear, but soon after, Natalie was gone. Confessions, confusion, and changing stories. Robert told investigators the last time he saw Natalie, she was fixing her hair at a mirror. But Davern claimed the couple had continued their fight on the deck. 2 new witnesses backed him up, saying they saw and heard the argument. Detective John Carina believed the witnesses were very credible. After the fight, there was silence. Nobody heard a splash. Nobody heard anything. 10 minutes later, Davern said he returned to the couple's room. Robert was crying, saying Natalie was missing. But strangely, he didn't report it until 1:30 a.m., nearly 2 hours later. In that time, he drank more scotch with Davern and refused to turn on the spotlight to search. When he finally called the Coast Guard, Natalie was already lost. Her body was found hours later, wearing only a nightgown, socks, and a jacket. The boat's dinghy was found in a nearby cave. Robert's theory was that Natalie heard the dinghy banging against the boat and got up to tie it down. He said she must have slipped, hit her head, and fallen into the water. The loose dinghy floated away, he explained. But Carina didn't believe it. "It's not that big a boat," he said. "Nobody heard the dinghy start up or take off." Natalie's sister Lana also didn't believe the story. She wouldn't do it. In a nightgown? She didn't even get the mail in a nightgown, she said. The original autopsy showed bruises on Natalie's body, and now investigators believe they may have come from an assault. "I can't say who caused the injuries," Carina said, "but we know the last person with her was Mr. Wagner." Silent witnesses and a case still open. Christopher Walken rarely speaks about that night, but when he has, He's always said Natalie's death was an accident. In a 1997 interview with Playboy, he claimed she went to bed before the men. He said the people who believe there's more to the story will never be satisfied with the truth. In 2020, in a documentary produced by Natalie's daughter, Robert Wagner admitted he and Walken had argued about Natalie's career the night she disappeared. But while Walken remains quiet in public, Lana Wood says he did talk to detectives working on the reopened case. He did tell them everything he witnessed, and he knows, she said. But he made them promise never to reveal what he told them. Not even Lana was allowed to know. The detectives simply told her, "He told us everything." As of now, Walken's team hasn't confirmed or denied the story, and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department still considers Natalie's death suspicious. Detective Ralph Hernandez stated clearly, her husband at the time, Robert Wagner, is the last known person to be with Ms. Wood prior to her death. He added, "The goal of the investigation is to confirm the truth of how she ended up in the water. The case remains open. Until the truth comes out, the mystery of what happened that night will continue to haunt everyone involved." Natalie's sister Lana hopes her memoir and ongoing efforts will keep Natalie's story alive. Not just as a Hollywood star, but as a woman who had a full life and a tragic end that still demands answers. Do you believe Robert Wagner knows more about what happened to Natalie Wood that night than he's ever admitted? And after all these years and new evidence, do you think the truth about Natalie's death will ever be revealed? Or will it stay a Hollywood mystery forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.